What is up guys? In this video I'm going to show you how to make a fast 90s house inspired track. This is what we're going to create today. Ready? Let's go. First of all, you can get access to this full FL Studio project on my member site. You can get access via the link in the description down below. Okay, so let's start with the drums. I have a kick drum. Standard 4 to the floor. It's on 142 BPM, so it's really fast. If you go to the mixer track, the only effect that I have on is a transient master, just to add a little bit of extra transient to the attack of the kick drum. Just a little bit. Next I have a clap. Also just some standard stuff, no effects on it. Next I have this like groovy ghost clap. And there's added some swing to it, so it's not entirely on the grid. You can see if I zoom in, it's shifted a little bit to the right, so it gives a little bit more of a sense of groove. Next I have these closed hi-hats, sounds like this. And as you can see, also the same with the swing, so it's not entirely on the grid. And the velocity, you can see it's changing every time the different note hits, so it's also adding a sense of groove and rhythm to these closed hi-hats. And then I have another closed hi-hat on every downbeat. And it's just to give like a sense of extra pace to the drum loop. Then I have this open hi-hat. And what's cool about this open hi-hat is that the sample is actually layered by itself. So I have the standard one up here, and then I have like a lower pitched one down here. And if we take a look at the panning, you can see like these notes are panned from left to right to create like a sense of change in the stereo field. Okay, moving on. Next I have these fast hats. This is just a sample. And you can hear like they're just going really, really fast, but it just works to generate some more extra pace to the drum loop. And next we have another top loop from Splice. And I actually have 3 different drum loops. I'm just gonna solo these. And what I love to do with drum loops from Splice is that I like to find loops that obviously work well together, but then I also like to pan them to left to the right. So this first loop is panned to the right. Then I have this top loop panned to the left. And then I have the next, it's also panned a little bit to the left. So it gives the drums a little bit more of a stereo field. And these loops are also really great to add a little bit of layering to the drums. So there might be some frequencies that are missing in the drums that I have programmed using one-shots. Then I have a ride loop. And as you might hear, this is going from left to right. If we go into the mixer channel, I have this plugin on called Fruity Panomatic. And basically this is just an auto panner. So it's just panning the channel from left to right. And it's just to add a little bit of more of interest to this ride loop. And then I have a breakbeat loop also from Splice. And I'm only using this in the intro and the build-up. And this is just to give it like that 90s rave kind of feeling to the track. So if we jump back into the different effects channel that I have for the drums, as you can see, I'm actually not doing that much. I'm trying to find samples that works pretty well on its own. So for the clap, didn't do anything, not for the open hi-hat, only like some volume balancing on the channel. For the fast hi-hats, the only thing that I added was just a side chaining, just to make it dock according to the kick drum. And this is just the shaper box from Cable Guys. You can use whatever plugin fits you. Also added like a little bit of like extra panning to the fast hats, so they're also just moving from left to right. Then on the top loop, I use a transient shaper, and this is mainly just to reduce the sustain. So they give the sense of the drums being a little bit more tight, so they're not like too sustained. and I really like that. Yeah, and then the ride loop with the Panomatic. And then everything, all of my drums except the kick drum are being routed into a drum bus. On the drum bus, I have a plugin called Passive EQ, and this is mainly just to remove the low end and then boost a little bit with a shelf the high end, just to give some presence to the higher frequencies of the drums. Then I have a bus compressor just to glue things together a little bit. Then I have a low pass filter, and this is for automation stuff that you can see down here. So this is mainly just being used in the build-up. So that was the drums. Now we're gonna move on to some of the instruments. So I have a grand piano here. So this is the MIDI pattern, and remember, if you want to get access to this full project, you can just go to my membership site via the link in the description down below. So this piano sound is coming from Arturia Piano 5, and I think these are just some really, really nice sounding pianos. The key is in A minor, and these are just some really like mellow chords that I like. So what I tend to do is that I also like to layer my pianos with some synth. So I have like this synth pad here, playing the same chords, so together they sound like this. Just adding a little bit of extra texture. So this synth pad is coming from Analog Dreams from Contact. And if we go to the mixer track for the synth pad, I have Guitar X6, and the only component I have is a tremolo effect, just to make it like move a little bit in the stereo field. So it's at a really fast rate, and with some intensity. This is like basically a mix knob, and then it's set to stereo. So you can hear it's like moving in the stereo field. It's really nice effect. And if we go back to the grand piano, the only thing that I have on the grand piano is actually just a fruity EQ, just to remove some of the low end. And for both of these sounds, the grand piano and the synth pad, I have used a limiter. And the limiter is actually a sidechain limiter acting as a sidechain component. This sidechain is being triggered by the kick drum, this channel here. So the kick drum is being routed into all of these other channels that I want to be sidechained to the kick drum. So this is like the basic settings that I'm using. So here you just select the sidechain input, which is the kick drum. So that means every time the kick drum is playing, the signal is being ducked down, and then in like, for instance, breakdowns and build-ups where the kick is not playing, the sounds are not being like sidechained. So I really like that effect, instead of everything just being sidechained all the time. The next melodic element that I have is this main melody, which is like really important. And it just sounds insane. So this melody is coming from Serum. It's actually one of my presets from a preset pack called Melon Serum Volume 1. You can check it out in the link in the description if you want to. So this is basically some FM stuff going on with some a bit of low passing and like a rather like shorter decay, and also playing a little bit with some noise. And then for the effects, a little bit of hyper dimension to spread out the sound, a little bit of this downsample component in distortion. This just makes it sound a little bit more like lo-fi. You can hear really, really great effect. Some delay, a little bit of filtering. So that's basically the patch, but you can also get access to this. If we navigate to the effect track, the only thing that I'm using is Neutron, and this is for EQing. So I'm removing a little bit of this 500 Hertz area because it was messing a little bit with some other elements. And then I'm doing like a broad boost at around 3K area, just to add a little bit more presence to the main melody, because that's what I want to keep pushing towards the mix, because that's one of the main elements. And then I have a fruity filter. This is being used in the build-up. It's this one here. Just to slowly introduce the main melody into the drop. Then again, I have a limiter for sidechaining, also to the kick drum.
Okay, I know you're enjoying this video right now, but I really need your help. Only 14% of you guys are subscribed to my YouTube channel, so do me a huge favor and smash that subscribe button for more awesome tutorials. That's all, thank you so much. Now let's get back to the video.
I have a chord stab. Also following some of the the chords that we have used in the piano. So these are like the hits. And the sound is coming from Analog Lab 5, the Jupiter plugin. And it just sounds amazing. And you could recreate this sound in Serum, and I believe that there are some presets on Splice, for example, for Serum that emulates this sound. I just like the analog vibe it has in this plugin. For the mixer track, I use Guitar X6, and I actually only use the replica delay at 1/8 dotted. Then I use like some low cut to remove any of the low end of the delay, and also some of the high end of the delay, so it sounds a little bit more like lo-fi put back into the mix. Then I use the wide mode and around 25% of mix. So this is what really gives like that extra tail to each hit. And then I'm also EQing this a little bit, so removing low end, also a little bit of the high end, because I want to make room for the drums and also a little bit of the vocals that's occupying that area. And then I'm boosting a little bit in this area here because I want to add a little bit more of present, and also removing a little bit of the 300K area, because that usually is where stuff can sound a little bit muddy. So I'm just reducing this area in this sound because it wasn't like giving me anything. So now we can move on to the bass line. So this is the sound. So the bass line is following the root note of the chords, but it's also going up in octave and also playing with the other available notes in the scale. And it gives the track that really like fast-paced vibe that I'm going for. So the sound is also coming from Serum, and this is just a basic like Moog style patch, which is emulating the mini Moog. So I'm using a sawtooth and a triangle wave, and then using the filter with some filter modulation with the envelope 2, just really like short plucky one. So we get like this really like short, almost like kind of stabby bass sound. For the effects, I actually turned off the delay because it was messing a little bit. And then yeah, just a little bit of EQing and a little bit of compressing. Then if we go to the mixer track for the bass line, the only thing that I use is actually just a sidechain. So this is actually sidechaining by using the shaper box, because I tried to use the limiter in Fruity and sidechain to the kick, but it wasn't sounding that great that I wanted to. So I had a little bit more control here. So I'm just using the sidechaining in shaper box instead. So let's try to listen to the bass line and all of the drum elements. It really sounds so groovy to me. Okay, so the next elements are perhaps the most important ones, and these are the vocal chops. So they sound like this. So it's 2 vocal samples from Splice. I'm just gonna turn off all of the effects. I'm gonna go through them later. So this is like the full like vocal sample.
You know it hurts even when you're sorry.
And what I tend to do is I actually just chop up the samples into small bits and just rearrange it, trial and error, try to listen to what kind of phrases fits well together. This is like the other.
Bring it back my way. Pull up when are you gonna stay?
And then I found like these bits.
You would have been all in. Pull up when you know it hurts even when you're so all in. Pull up when I hope to go.
Like small chops here. So the magic really happens when we turn on the effects. So the first is this digital alto boy, where I'm using the formatting and turning it down by -5. So it gives the vocal a little bit more like a gritty tone to it. You would have been all in. Pull up when I know it hurts even when you're so all in. It's just amazing. Then I'm using the decapitator. It's just to add a little bit more distortion and drive to the vocal chops. You would have been all in. Pull up when I know it hurts even when you're so all in. Pull up when I hope to. It's just giving it so much character. Then I'm using Guitar X6 again, and this is like a really crazy patch. It's some chorus, grain delay, also a little bit more of delay, a lot of reverb, delay again from Replica, the tremolo effect that I touched upon with the synth pad, some EQing to remove low end and also a little bit of the high end, this bite component, which is basically just downsampling the sound. So it's going down in bit depth and also like with the kilohertz. So it also sounds a little bit more like lo-fi. And then lastly, I have a solid bus compressor just to glue together the sound a little bit. So it sounds like this. And this is just a combination of the delays and the reverb and also like the chorus. And it just gives the vocals some more width and also some more grit to it. Next, I have the Neutron 3. This is basically to remove low end and also boosting the high end with a shelf. Because I want it to be like a little bit more like present in the mix. Then I'm also using the shaper box for sidechaining here. Like a really like heavy sidechain. And then lastly I have a fruity filter, and this is also being used here in the build-up for the track. So these are like really, really awesome vocals. Then I have like all of these different effects down here. Like small saps and downlifters, cymbals, small risers and stuff. Also for like the build-up here. Like a snare uplifter here, and then like some sweeps and stuff, small fills, and it's also just like pushing the track towards the drop, pushing the build-up. One cool thing that I like to use is like these field recordings. This is actually some field recordings that I did when I was on holiday on Mallorca. And why I like to use field recordings is they add some warmth and some texture to the tracks. And what I tend to do is I route them to a mixer track, and then I use a shaper box. I use the panning component, so it's panning from left to right, adding some interesting stuff in the stereo field. And then I'm using a sidechaining component to duck the signal, so it's not interfering with like the kick drum. It just gives like this movement to the sound. If you're on headphones, you can really hear it. So yeah, that's actually the track. If we can see like a little bit of the arrangement, I have like the breakbeat in the beginning here for the intro, and then I'm building with some more drums here towards the drop. I also introduce the vocal samples with some low pass filter on it. The same thing with the main melody, which kicks in here around where it's really like building up. And then I have like this white noise, the snare build, and all of the other uplifters to really like build it up towards the drop. Then up here I have 3 automation clips. This one is for volume, so I'm basically just reducing the volume of the master output just to give like a sense of the drop hitting a little bit harder. So it seems like the drop is louder, but it's actually not. It's just because we're reducing the volume just before the drop hits. Then I'm using a high pass filter here. So it's just taking out. And this is also a great way to add a little bit of tension, because then you're like making the sound a little bit more thin. And then when the drop hits, it just smacks you with all of the low end. And then I have like this last one here, which is basically like a stereo imager. It's this one from kilohertz, and I'm basically just reducing the width of the master output, so the track sounds a little bit more mono, and when the drop hits, everything is like back to the normal stereo field. So this is actually it for the track. Let's just play it and listen to it. This was an amazing project to work on. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Remember, if you want to get access to this project, you can go to my membership site via the link in the description and get access to the project. If you like the video, it means so much to me if you smash that like button or even subscribe to the channel. As always, if you want some sound inspiration, you can go and check out some of my sample pack and preset pack on my web shop. The link is also in the description down below. So I hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.